What's going on, guys? Coach Bergman here, TB8 live from Cambridge, Massachusetts. This is One Clip, One Drill, and it is just such a pleasure to be with you guys here today and getting to share the next 30 minutes or so together. It's been a trying time in our society. This past week has certainly been unique, and the same remains true here in Cambridge. I've decided to stay in this area of the country. I find solace in being in Cambridge, where Harvard is located. It is an honor to wear the Veritas crest, and today is just another blessing, another opportunity for me to represent the university, and it's always an honor any day I get to do that. So let's dive in here to today's topic, hip flexibility. Hip flexibility, a goalie's secret weapon. So I'm going to talk about this presentation, and I'm going to use this phrase, hips don't lie. I got this one from the headmaster himself, Coach Byrne, and hips don't lie. Hips are essential for every aspect of the goaltending position, mainly these ones right here: balance, explosiveness, physical maintenance. What do I mean by physical maintenance? Keeping our body healthy, being game ready, being ready for practice, making sure we have the strength, making sure that we have the next one, flexibility. Our hips are essential to all of this. Every piece of goaltending is reliant on your hips. First thing we got, balance. If you saw my presentation from last week on toy soldier goaltending, you would have noticed that balance was everything. It's all I talked about. Well, balance is of the utmost importance to me. I love to use sports as a way to teach life skills. I think as educators, that's what we all try to do, especially in the sports world. And balance, I teach it in the crease itself of having equal weight distribution between our feet, but having balance in our life is just as important. So being able to balance academics, being able to balance athletics, being able to balance family life, having balance in life, having balance in the cage is essential, and we can rely on our hips for just that. So what are the balance muscles? Physically, what muscles do you need in order to have great balance? So I break it down into just three main muscles. You got your, or I guess they're more body parts than muscles. You got your hips, you got your knees, and you got your ankles. So coming over here to this picture of me and my playing days here, you can see right here with the laser pointer, we have our hips, we have our knee, and we have our ankle. Those are the three areas where our balance is essential. And those are our three areas where we can work on in the gym, in the yoga studio, on the track, in your room, on quarantine for that matter. I'm going to show you guys some exercises that you can do while you're staying safe and staying in your house. But they're always going to focus on these three areas of your body: your hips, your knees, and your ankles. So let's just look through the life of a possession. We always talk about the life of a possession at Harvard, stemming from the leadership of Coach Byrne. He always is talking about the life of things throughout the game: the life of a face-off, the life of a dodge, the life of a possession. And as a goalie, the life of a possession, as we talked about from our toy soldier presentation, the life of a possession should look exactly the same. But what do we notice from our focus today? I want to be focused on our hips, because I just want this simple man down clip from the Redwoods Chaos game to just give you an example of how strenuous one possession is on our hips. This is our goalie, Tim Troutner. He's doing a phenomenal job being a toy soldier. At every shot location, he looks exactly the same. But what do we always notice? His hips are always engaged. They're like this. It's like a coil. We'll get to the coil concept in a bit. But just notice how his hips are always engaged in toy soldier goaltending. His knees are always bent and his hips are always engaged for the entire life of a possession. So in the PLL, that might be 52 seconds. But in college lacrosse with an 80-second shot clock, let's say you get a reset in there too. We're now talking 120, 140, 160 seconds of being fully engaged with your hips, activated the entire time. That takes incredible hip strength. And the muscles required here, your hips, your knees, and your ankles to stay balanced, well, That's why we work out in the weight room, to strengthen those muscles. And I'm going to show you guys some exercises right here today, which can help us strengthen our hips. Hip strength is essential for toy soldier goaltending, because you need to have your hips engaged throughout the entire life of possession. Look here on the top down cross crease feed. What I mean by that is the ball is here, top center, top down, cross crease feed. How do we react? Toy soldier, hips, knees, ankles. They're engaged. But look how our hips have been engaged, and now it's time to explode. Boom. Great save there from Tim Troutner, who's proven to be one of the great young goalies that we have going right now. This is from my last presentation, Toy Soldier Goaltending. But you can see the same thing here for our Harvard goalie from our scrimmage. Hips engaged, knees, ankles, all the same. Toy Soldier. But with Toy Soldier Goaltending, we look the same, exactly the same, regardless of what the situation is that we're facing. In order to do that, we need to have strong hips, because our hips are always bent at this angle, which can be quite strenuous. And for this reason, we need to strengthen our hips. As you can see right here, hips always engaged, knees engaged, ankles engaged. Having the discipline physically to have the strength to stay this way is awesome. If I were to make our hip diagram, if you join me for our last presentation, our hips would be completely square. That is what we look like right here with Toy Soldier Goaltending. Hip diagrams. I talked about hip diagrams as a great way to teach goalies how their body positioning should look, how they should physically look if you were to take a picture of them. And you can picture just the various parts of your body, your balance points, which I talk about, your balance points. What are your balance points? There's 3 of them. Hips, knees, ankles. Those are your 3 balance points. And you can actually see them in a minimalist fashion for those art people out there. This is a minimalist drawing of a lower body of a human being, but you can see the 3 points. The hips, the knees, and the ankles are all straight, they're engaged, and that requires muscles. So you might be asking to yourself, what exercises can I be doing to strengthen my hips and my knees and my ankles, those balance muscles? Well, here's a great one. I just got this simply from YouTube, but this does a great job with our balance, and I do this drill with the goalies all the time. And notice the amount of space this drill takes up. You can do this drill right here in your living room, in the kitchen, in the driveway, in the basement. Social distancing is essential, and it's very important that we listen and adhere to all the guidelines. But it doesn't mean we can't get better. And all you need in this is sneakers and a line on the ground. So as we see right here, these are called single-legged hops. We do these all the time with our goalies here. Single-legged hops moving in all directions. So right here we have right foot, single-legged hops. Up, catch. Notice, ankles engaged, knees engaged, our hip is engaged. Those are our 3 balance points. This is a great exercise to strengthen our hips. Forwards, backwards, left, right, facing all directions with both legs. Single-legged hops are awesome, and they're very tough because they force us to engage our hips, our knees, and our ankles. Most importantly, though, our hips. What could be better from our goalie here? Our eyes. Our eyes need to be up. I like that our hands are out here. This is a female goalie, but men, women, both exceptional athletes and both play goalie in a similar fashion. So gender doesn't matter for this exercise, or any exercise for that matter. But we see our hands are out. What we don't like is that our eyes are down. We don't want our eyes down. We want our eyes up, our hands out, which we do a good job of, and our chest up to face the shooter. So we could do a better job here, but we do a good job engaging our hips, our knees, and our ankles. So single-legged hops, a simple drill, but yet quite effective to get going here. And it looks like we have a chat going here. And we're moving on to our first Harvard trivia question of the day. I know that you guys have been waiting anxiously for your chance to prove your knowledge in our chat section. Well, here we go. Harvard trivia. First question. In what year was Harvard founded? Please chime into the chat section. Let's see what kind of answers that we can come up with. And I'm excited to share the answer to that question later on. Just a quick tip for you. Harvard is the oldest and longest standing academic institution in the United States of America. So think long and hard before you answer that one. Well, we finished with balance. Let's now move into our second area of goaltending that is directly impacted by the hips, and that's explosiveness. So when we think about explosiveness, I really want you guys to think about exactly what you see right there, a coil. It's very tight and it gets squished down, but then it expands and it gets really big. And that explosiveness, this analogy, this demonstration of a coil is what I always want you guys to think about when you hear the word explosiveness, because explosiveness is definitely a buzzword in the lacrosse goaltending community. But it's just like a coil because your hips start at this angle and shoot up every time we make a save. And now I'll show you some examples of that. But where does explosiveness really impact goalies? It impacts us right here. If you can see this arc that I drew with the line feature right here. Explosiveness really shines on inside shots. I like to think about 12 yards and in. It doesn't mean we're not explosive on time and room, but time and room, even though the ball's moving faster, we have a little bit longer to react. That true explosiveness feature really shines and really comes to light with inside shots. And that's where you're going to see most goalies make those really explosive saves that blow up all over YouTube. So when you think about the professional lacrosse scene right now, and you're trying to think about explosiveness and explosive goaltending, there's really only one person that comes to mind right now, and that's Jack and Cannon. So let's just enjoy watching these for a little bit. I know that I love the sport of lacrosse. I love the goaltending position, and I'm just going to enjoy some of these saves with you guys. Wow, what a save right there. And we'll go back and watch these all together, and we'll break them down. But we can be fans of the sport together here for a second. Just pretty incredible stuff from Jack and Cannon. He's really come through big for the Atlas this year. He's playing with Team USA. He's from Hofstra, phenomenal goalie. But what makes him so gifted is his explosiveness in tight areas. So let's dive back into the film here so we can break some of this down, because Jack and Cannon's explosiveness is quite impressive, and it's something that I would love to highlight. Boom. What a pause. What a pause from the HLX studios here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. You can just see that coil on the hips right here. So if I can bring it back, we can see the coil beginning. Although we don't have perfect toy soldier balance, we can see that our hips are beginning to get engaged. Play it, pause it, boom. Look at that coil. Look at that explosiveness. The only reason he's able to make this level of save is because he has flexible hips. I want you to look at where his legs finish right here. Look at the angle of this. If you were going to jump up in the air and try to do that in your living room right now, well, maybe if you have a relative, here's a cheerleader, she'll be able to do that successfully, but I highly doubt you'll be able to. And that's because you might not have the most flexible hips. Hip flexibility is essential for explosiveness, especially at the goaltending position. And Jack Cannon perfectly shows that with this screenshot right here. Some might call this dramatic. You don't necessarily need to jump with the spread eagle legs. You can just come across your face. That may be true, but this is a style of goaltending that is really popular, especially for goalies who are slightly undersized. They have to have that explosiveness in order to make saves. In slow motion here, you can see it. Boom. He's able to get that leg perpendicular to the ground. Think about the amount of hip flexibility that takes. Great toy soldier goaltending here by Jack Cannon. You can see that perfect weight distribution. His hip diagram would be perfectly square. You can see his hips starting to coil right now for that explosive save. Boom. Here it is again. Slightly dramatic, maybe, but having the ability to make this type of explosive movement with your body is only going to help you as a goalie. Explosiveness, hip flexibility is the secret sauce for goaltending, especially on in-tight shots. So if you're worried about how can I get better at in-tight shots, yes, you need to get your hands faster, but get your hips more flexible. It'll allow your body to maneuver in a way which can get you to the ball before you thought was even possible. Same thing here. A more simple save, fundamentally speaking, but you can just see the same hip coil, which we love. Hips, neutral, great toy soldier stance, but when it's time to make a save, we coil, boom, and we explode. Look at that explosiveness from our hips. Having flexible hips allows Jack Cannon to get his body behind the ball. Having flexible hips is what allows Jack Cannon to make incredible saves on the doorstep. If you're looking to improve your inside saves, you need to stretch your hips. And we're going to go over some ways to do that in a little bit. And not only do you need to stretch your hips, but you need to strengthen your hips and become more explosive. So we're just going to keep watching some of these incredible doorstep saves from Jack Cannon before we get to one of my favorites that I'll show you here in 1 second. Boom. Here it is right here. It's a nice step down here, just outside 2-point range. And this is what I want to show you, that hip flexibility is important on outside shots too. You can see our hips start to coil. We begin our flexible and our athletic movement, and look where we finish. This is essentially a full split. So for some reason, flexibility throughout our course of history has gotten a feminist undertone, probably dating back to when women spent most of their athletics in gymnastics and in dance, and flexibility sort of got tied to a feminine feature. But as we continue to develop as society and as we continue to progress as athletes, we have to start including flexibility as a mandatory trait for all lacrosse goalies. Masculine, feminine, male, female, it doesn't matter. Flexibility is essential if you're going to play in between the pipes so you can make saves like this. Think about Marc-Andre Fleury, Henrik Lundqvist, great hockey goalies. Their flexibility is out of this world because they need to be able to get pipe to pipe quickly. Our net is a little wider. It's taller than theirs. So we need to be just as flexible, if not more flexible than hockey goalies. Hip flexibility is essential to making inside saves. You need to be able to stretch your hips and to be strong in your hips. Jack Concannon is not the only goalie with great hip flexibility. When I think about the best goalie in the world, I think about Dylan Ward. Dylan Ward, who recently just signed with the Premier Lacrosse League, is just an incredible goalie. I had the privilege of playing with Dylan Ward on the Denver Outlaws, and we talked many a time about patience, toy soldier goaltending, using our breath throughout goaltending. But Dylan Ward he's just the epitome of great goaltending. He's big, he's long, he's quick. But I want you to watch his hip flexibility, because when everyone talks about Dylan Ward, they talk about the hands, they talk about the size, they talk about the balance. Well, I'm trying to change the narrative of how we talk about goalies. I want you to watch his hip flexibility here. Hips are up, hips are down, they're coiled, but it's really this wraparound from Rob Pannell where you can see the extreme hip flexibility of Dylan Ward. Inside roll, toy soldier goaltending. Dylan Ward is still, he's calm, he looks great. As Rob Pannell, a great attackman, fakes and tries to wrap around him, boom, look at that save. And now every goalie coach that I ever had, and you listen to the pundits on television, they'll tell you this: look at Dylan Ward throw his hands at the ball. He has quick hands. I'm not debating that. Dylan Ward has quick hands. That's a fact. But I want people to start recognizing Dylan Ward's hip flexibility and his strength and his explosiveness. Explosive movements come from your hips. Look at this hip flexibility from Dylan Ward. Essentially in the full splits, his hips are totally engaged. They're thrusting left to right violently. Hip flexibility, hip flexibility, hip flexibility. Great hip flexibility from Dylan Ward here allows him to make a great save inside. When we think explosiveness, we think hip flexibility. And when we think explosiveness, a lot of people think power cleans, and they'd be right. I'm going to give you 2 exercises here that are awesome for explosiveness. So when you're trying to make those incredible saves on the doorstep, well, these are some exercises to help you get there. Shout out to one of my old colleagues, Matt Bertram's, one of the most explosive athletes I've ever been around, for showing me the proper form here on these videos for me to use today. Coach Bertram's, thank you. Power cleans from the ground are great, and I like them better than hang cleans because it increases your range of motion, which is awesome. So when you start from the ground, you're forced to come all the way up. So your hip coil is that much greater. And look at this hip coil right here. Great form from Coach Bertram's, getting up underneath the bar. I do not pretend to be a strength and conditioning coach. I am not a strength and conditioning coach, and I'm not certified. So I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of the exact proper form here. Please find a strength coach who knows and is certified to explain to you the proper fundamentals of power cleaning. But power cleaning lightweight, we don't need to be going so heavy. Power cleaning lightweight from the ground is a great explosiveness training drill. It's explosive. Boom, you're up, you thrust up, your hips expand, your hips start here as the coil, and they thrust up and expand, and you get up and underneath the bar. It's just a great job from a really explosive athlete, Coach Bertram's. We love power cleans from the ground. A second exercise that I love for explosiveness, especially on making inside saves, are single-legged box jumps. And these are difficult because it's a typical box jump here. And as you can see, Coach Bertram's beginning that thrust with his hips, but you finish on one leg. So not only are we utilizing explosive movements, we're also tying in your balance points, your hips, your knees, and your ankles. So single-legged box jumps are a great drill for goalies who need to work on their hip strength and explosiveness. Again, explosive movements to get up the box, having the balance to catch yourself with your hip, your knee, and your ankle. Single-legged box jumps are a great drill for explosiveness. Harvard trivia time. Guys, pretty impressed. In what year was Harvard founded? Harvard was founded in 1636. Jack Baumforth, great answer. James, also correct. Harvard was founded in 1636 by vote of the Great and General Court of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. So when you think about that, Harvard was around for over 100 years before the United States of America was even a country. And behind me in my virtual background, you can see one of our oldest teams from Harvard from 1881. So Mike, though Harvard was not founded in 1881, these lacrosse players right here were at Harvard in 1881. And it's really inspiring to be in the same geographic place of where great minds have come to work and great minds have come to learn for hundreds of years now. And I can assure you that great minds are at work right now in our labs trying to get at this coronavirus. Moving on to our next piece of hip flexibility, physical maintenance. So as you watch some of these videos here, goalies take a beating. Just imagine having to put your body through this every game, every practice. To play goalie at a high level, you're thrusting your hips up and down, open. You're coiled, you're exploding, you're crouched, you're jumping, you're full splits 1 second, and then you get smacked with the ball the next second. Your goalies go through a beating, and it's their hips which take the brunt of the force. Because your hips are always engaged in toy soldier goaltending, because your hips are always utilized for explosive movements, which is how we make all of our saves, we need to take care of our hips. So this is where I created the warm-up, and this is a warm-up that our goalies at Harvard will do before every single practice. It's something that I created in my time as a player, which I did, and I actually got this from a trainer who I worked with in college to try to become a more explosive athlete myself. So this is Caleb Espinoza. Caleb Espinoza was a goalie for me last year at Cleveland State University who graduated from Cleveland State. Shout out to Caleb. I texted him this morning. I keep in good relationships with all my goalies, and Caleb, thank you for letting me use this film, and it was great to hear that you're doing well in Colorado Springs. This is a warm-up that we'll do every single day before practice. While the team is stretching their glutes and stretching their hamstrings and doing the high kicks to the midline, my goalies are laying on the ground, chin on the grass. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if it's snowing. Our chin's on the grass, our toes are down, and our palms are facing down, and we do scorpion lifts, just like this. Boom. I'm trying to invert that spine and get our hips fully engaged. This is a brutal way to start your day. If you wake up, lay on the ground, chin on the floor, and do 10 scorpion lifts, it sucks. It sucks, but it gets your hips engaged, it gets them warm, and it gets them ready to explode. So this is our routine. We do 10 scorpion lifts just like this. Up, down. Then we do 10 knee to elbows. Right knee to right elbow. Notice that our left leg is perfectly straight. The expression I use all the time, how much can you focus on one muscle moving? We're going to use our mind, we're going to use our breath, and we're going to hyper-focus all of that energy to one muscle group, our hips. This is not only going to allow us to loosen our hips at a higher rate, it's also going to help our mind check in for a very difficult practice or game that's ahead of us. Mental discipline is everything. We are never rattled. Right knee to right elbow, left knee to left elbow. Alternate 10 each side, a great exercise. And then we call these can openers. I don't really know the right name for them, but it sort of looks like a can opener to me. Quarantining myself, been eating some canned food, and thought of the name last night, so hope you appreciate it. 10 can openers. You lay in a T with your chest still on the ground, arms in a big T, your legs are straight, and you just go up and over. Can openers, up and over. Try to touch that big toe to that pinky. Big toe to the pinky. Good. It's a great stretch. It really opens up your hips nicely. It's a great one. And that's when we roll over and we get to our bridges. So we'll do 10 bridges with our heels engaged on the ground. You really want to see a good rise in our hips here. Again, if you think about goaltending, you get this motion all the time. We do it single-legged. It gets our balance points, our knee, our ankle, our hip. Single-legged bridges are great for balance and great for explosiveness and hip flexibility because it forces us to engage. Think about this motion right there. Your hips are down and then they're up. Same motion we use when we make a save all the time. Great job here. Moving on to our next exercise after our single-legged bridges. Up and overs. Same thing as the can opener, but now we're laying on our back. So our right leg and our left leg come up, over, up, and down. And that really focuses on our IT band, that outer edge of your leg. That IT band is essential for flexibility. Our IT band is essential as an athlete. And flexibility is everything. So flexibility helps our loose hips. It helps our hamstrings, our low back, our IT band, and our glutes. So I want to finish. I only have 2 minutes left here. So I want to finish and talk about yoga because yoga is everything. You look at some of these poses here and you can just see the hip flexibility that's required. Not only does yoga require you to have flexible hips, but it requires you to be mentally checked in for up to an hour, simply focusing on one muscle moving. Yoga, flexibility, hip strength, they're synonymous with one another. If you talk to all of the great goalies, Kyle Bernlohr does yoga, Jack Cannon, he does yoga, Adam Gittleman, he does yoga, Ted Bergman, TBA, he does yoga too. Doing yoga is essential. It allows you to have mental discipline. It allows you to have loose and flexible hips and allows you to strengthen your hips. Having flexible hips is a goalie's secret weapon, especially on inside saves. So anytime you're looking to work on inside saves, yes, you need to have quick hands. Yes, you need to be able to read shooter sticks, but undervalued and undertaught is having flexible and explosive hips. If you want to get better at being a goalie, especially on in-tight shots, have flexible hips and have strong hips. Any questions here before we move on to our next episode? I thank you guys for joining me for this time. I hope you take some of those hip exercises to heart. They're essential, they're really important, and I promise that they'll make you a better goalie.